and welcome to Moms on Mics. I'm Joanne.
I'm Cash.
And I'm Sophia.
So last week we talked about Terry Hobbs and how he definitely seems like a viable suspect. But could he have done it? So to know that, we need to look at the timeline. Where was Terry Hobbs on the night of May 5th, 1993? So on June 21st, 2007, Detective L.T. Ken Mitchell and Detective Chuck Knoll interviewed Terry Hobbs for the first time regarding the murders in 1993. However, it was so poorly transcribed, and quite frankly, the police didn't seem to put much effort into most of it, that it's not even worth reading. But we're going to try with some. Mitchell starts with letting Terry know that he is there voluntarily. And they just want to go over a few things as per request by the prosecuting attorney. Mr. Davis asks us to interview a couple of the people in light of some possible new evidence that may have come up and just to fill in some blanks. I guess as far as this case goes, that might be helpful. I'm sorry, what? This is 14 years after the murders. After the West Memphis Three have spent the last 14 years in prison, Damien on death row and Jason and Jesse were sentenced to life in prison. There should not be any blanks. They explain that they want him to, quote, take us back to May 5th, 1993. They're going to ask him questions, and if he can remember, great. If not, he just has to say he can't remember. None of which is all that helpful 14 years later. If he's lying, he's had 14 years to practice to get his story straight, or to simply say, I don't remember. If he's telling the truth, he's probably forgotten any detail that actually could have helped.
Why wait so long, though?
Right? This should have been done May the 7th, right? Like 14 years later. I'm sorry, do you remember anything that happened 14 years ago?
No.
Like I can think
to.
Right? But even significant things that happened in my life, for one, I don't remember them. 'Cause it's 14 years ago. And I get it. I'm sure some of this is totally different. I never had a child that was murdered. So I'm sure some of those details stick with you. However, 14 years later, it's going to be hard to know if it's memories that you're having, if it's things you've seen on TV, if it's things that were said in trial, if it's things that some of the other family members have brought up. You're not going to know for sure because you went through a fucking trauma 14 years ago.
Yeah.
Your memory is going to be skewed. I'm sorry, it is.
Yeah, I agree.
Mitchell asked if he saw Stevie anywhere, and Terry said, quote, I did not. He wasn't there. When I walked in, I always checked on the kids, and I didn't see Stevie, so I asked Pam, where's Stevie? And she said he went off to ride his bicycle with Michael Moore. Terry said when he came home and saw Stevie wasn't there, Pam explained that she told him he was supposed to be home at 4:30. Pam had to be at work by 5, so Terry went in and out of the house to see if he could see Stevie coming, because he had to take Pam to work. Mitchell asked if he and Pam ever had any kind of physical confrontation at all during the part of their marriage. Terry said, nah, not that I could think of. Mitchell asked about how he disciplined Amanda and Stevie. Terry admitted that he would use a belt and, quote, I would make him stand in the corner and I would ground him or take something away that they liked. Stevie liked Nintendo games, so we would bar him from Nintendo or bar him from riding his bicycle. Mitchell asked if Pam would discipline the kids also. Terry said she would yell at them. Quote, not yell, not mean, but just being a mom that left it up to dad most of the time. But she would whip him on occasions. Mitchell goes back to May the 5th and asks when he took Pam to work at Catfish Island, who went with him. Terry said she started work at 5, so he and Amanda took her. Then they went to the Moore's house to see if Stevie was there or if Michael was there. Dawn was there and she told him they were riding their bicycles. So they just started going street to street in the neighborhood to see if we could find him for about 30 minutes to an hour. Mitchell asked if he spoke to Mr. and Mrs. Moore. Terry said he didn't think they were home at the time, but their daughter Dawn was, so he asked her where Stevie and Michael were. Then they both went home for a bit. Then Terry decided they would walk around the neighborhood and see if they could hear him behind the fences in somebody's yard. They then went back home, and shortly after, Dana pulled up and asked if Michael was at their house. Terry said, quote, "No, they're supposed to be at your house." She said, "I just left from my house and they're not. And I'm looking for them." And I said, "We've been looking for them." Mitchell asked if Mrs. Moore had said that the boys had ever been at her house. Terry said, quote, "I think she said that, but I told her I said they were supposed to be at your house. So we went by there on our way to take Pam to work. And then we come back by we didn't see no bikes. So we walked around fixing to drive around some more. We headed back to your house." She said, "Well, I am headed to my house because Dawn was there." I said, "We'll follow you over there." Lord.
Mitchell, so what do you do after you talk to Miss Moore? Terry said they went back to Dana's house, and that's when John, Mark Byers, came over asking if they had seen Christopher. That was, according to Terry, the first time he had met John, Mark Byers. Terry said that was when he figured out that the three of them were probably together. Terry said he still had Amanda with him at this point, and he drove around some more looking for the boys. Then he went back to David and Bobby's house and dropped Amanda off there. But during this statement, he hadn't actually said he had been to Jacoby's house yet, so how is he going back to his house? According to Terry, they just drove around looking for them. At this point, he hasn't mentioned that he and Jacoby got out of the car or searched the woods. Mitchell asked when Terry saw Pam again, and Terry said when he and Amanda picked her up from work at 9 o'clock. Terry said that Pam, like every other night, came out of the building with 2 pieces of candy, one for Amanda, one for Stevie, and asked, "Where's Stevie?" Terry said he told Pam they hadn't found him yet, and that Pam replied, "He's dead." Terry said, "Pam, don't say that. Don't even think that. What makes you say that?" Terry said he was getting nervous a little bit because it was starting to get dark. This contradicts what Pam told police in 1993. She said he walked into the restaurant and went directly to the payphone. He did not say anything to me. He did not tell me who he was calling, and he did not tell me that Stevie was missing, Pamela told investigators. Official police logs and deposition records verify the timeline of the call, the logged time. According to testimony from West Memphis Police Detective Lieutenant Ken Mitchell, the police department received and logged the missing person phone call from Catfish Island at 9:19 p.m. Officers were officially dispatched to the restaurant to respond to the call 2 minutes later at 9:21 p.m. While the police confirmed the 9:19 p.m. call from the restaurant, it contradicted Terry Hobbs' subsequent claims in media interviews where he asserted he had called the police much earlier, between 5 p.m. and 5:30 p.m., to report the children missing. Police records showed no such earlier call from him. Mitchell asked Terry if he knew who the first family or the first one to call the police on this was, and Terry said that while he was at Dana's house, John Mark Byers said he was going to call the police. He then said, "I thought I called him before that. I can't remember. Seemed like I did. I ain't gonna sit here and say that. I'm just trying to think back." Although he admitted he didn't have a home phone at the time, so he would have had to use a payphone.
Yeah, there's no way he called the police at 5 or 5:30. Why are you even suspecting that they're missing then? Right? Like, he was supposed to be home by 4:30, and sure, he's half an hour to an hour late, but you just, at that point, as a parent, wouldn't you assume they're just late?
Yeah.
Right. And I do not believe for one second that Pam came out of work and went, "Oh my God, he's dead." I don't believe that for one second. No mom will believe their child is dead until they see their dead body.
Yeah.
Be like, absolutely not. That's not him. No way. That's not him. There's no way you would just initially be like, "Oh, he's dead."
Yeah.
Like, he's late home, so he's dead.
Yeah.
No way. So Mitchell then asked where they went after he had picked up Pam. Terry said he thinks they went by the house first, or they might have gone to Robin Hood first. quote, over in the wooded area where someone, the last people that we talked to, said they seen him going into the Robin Hood area, end quote. When asked who they spoke to that said that they had seen the boys going there, Terry said, some of the neighbors probably. There was a lot of people out there and he was going door to door asking, have you seen 3 little boys? And someone said they had seen them going to Robin Hood around the time some show come on. So after that seemed like from that point on, we just couldn't let go of Robin Hood. Terry said the area looked like the jungle, looked like something that grown-ups would go in, not kids. I don't think so. Some wooded area, grown-ups are going to be like, fuck no, bugs. Kids are going to be like, fuck yeah, fun, right? And just trail the wooded area. There were ditches and water back there. I couldn't see an 8-year-old boys hanging around, which honestly sounds exactly where 8-year-old boys would want to hang out. I find it odd that so many people claim they didn't know the woods were there when they're like right by where they live. Like so many people have said, I didn't even know they were there. I've never been there. Like, what? You've never explored your neighborhood? That's so weird. They may never have gone into the woods, but to not know they were there just seems weird. And Terry explains that he and John Mark Byers and Officer Regina Meeks went a little ways in and we turn around and come back out because it was hot and muggy and it was growed up and it was full of mosquitoes and everybody was getting mosquito bit. And so everybody was coming to shift changes and Regina told us that she was going to pass it on down there to all this was going on out there, but there's a lot of people. Dude. It's so hard to read some of his statements, to be honest. He doesn't make much sense. It's worth noting that in Officer Regina Meeks' testimony in 1994, she does not mention Terry Hobbs being there at any time. She does mention John Mark Byers and Ryan Byers. John Mark Byers also didn't mention Terry Hobbs being there in his statements. Mitchell asks Terry if he remembers the names of those searching in the woods, and he could only name David Jacoby. Mitchell then asks if Pam went into the woods, and Terry says, quote, not until I picked her up and we went in together, end quote. He then asks if he went into the woods before he picked up Pam, and Terry says, quote, sure. Mitchell replies, you did? You remember? But what time was that? And Terry says 6 or 6:30, with a lot of neighborhood people, because it was people on 3-wheelers, 4-wheelers, motorcycles, bicycles, on foot, that was, help calling us look for the kids. It is strange that he didn't mention this earlier when Mitchell had asked him to tell him what happened that night. He skipped right over this. And this is a pretty memorable scene. All the neighbors out on their 3- and 4-wheelers, dirt bikes, motorbikes, bicycles, looking for 3 8-year-old boys. Seems like a part of a story you would remember. But it also seems odd that the neighbors would have been in the woods searching at that time also, as the boys hadn't even been reported missing at that point. They were only 1 to 2 hours late so far. So if they're meant to be home 4:30, why is the entire neighborhood out searching on ATVs at 6 to 6:30? That just seems so bizarre, right?
I think also the fact that no one else has mentioned him being there.
Yeah, that's just it. Terry is the only one that mentions Terry being in the woods searching.
Because you'd think that other people would say that?
Absolutely. And I mean, he's been searching since 5 o'clock, right? Like since he dropped Pam off and then he was out searching.
But if he was so worried about him being late, he wouldn't have dropped off his wife right away. He would have went looking.
Yeah, he could have said, hey, wife, drive your own ass to work. Because she could drive, by the way. Like, he just liked to take her to work. If you think your child is missing, you're not stopping looking to take your wife to work, who is very capable of driving herself to work.
And if she was worried, as a mom, you'd be going out to find him.
Yeah, I would not be worried. But that's the thing, though. She wasn't worried yet. He was just a little late. By the time she went to work at 5, he was only half an hour late. He's 8 years old. This guy is a dick. I feel like he's basically trying to make up reasons. He's like, oh, I was so worried. So I was looking for him ridiculously early before he was even really missing yet. That's how worried I was.
Mad.
Yeah, exactly.
Not worried.
Yeah.
I was so mad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I don't buy the whole like worried father
No.
thing at all. I don't. Whether he did it or not, I just don't buy the act. I think he's definitely lying about something. Whether he is to blame or not, he is whether he's lying because he's like so ashamed that he wasn't actually out searching. And so he's just saying he was. And then maybe has guilt for like if I actually did go out looking, maybe I would have found him and maybe this wouldn't have happened. Whether that's the reason he's lying or whether it's because of something more nefarious, who knows? But I feel he's definitely lying about something for sure.
Just by the way he talks, you can tell he's lying.
Oh yeah. Yeah, definitely listen to that interview that I told you guys about, the one from the prosecutor's podcast. Just to hear the way he talks, listen to the interview, and he's just like, I am this innocent victim, and I just worried about everybody, and everybody just shit on Terry.
Terry explains that it was daylight when he first went out to the woods. It's unclear exactly when he went to the woods for the first time. Initially, he said with Pam around 9:30. Then he switched to 6:30. But he had said he was with David Jacoby then. It's possible he simply doesn't remember 14 years later, or that he's lying. And we have to consider the fact that if he is lying, it doesn't necessarily mean he murdered the boys. It's possible that he could be lying because he was doing something else he shouldn't have been doing. Or because he felt guilty for being at David Jacoby's house playing guitar when he was supposed to be looking for Stevie. Mitchell asked him if anything out there struck as unusual or odd that he saw. Terry said, quote, nothing that was left. I wouldn't have been out there at least. I have, And we were told one time that there was something covered, a hole or something, and they thought they might been in that hole. So some of them little kids that knew where that place is at said they'd go check it. I think the little Byers boy, the one that was alive, there's another one alive because I think he was gone, go meet some of the people there. I don't know what they was talking about. I don't even know what he's talking about.
I know. I don't even know what you're talking about, Cash.
Right? But that is the worst way to describe Christopher's brother. You know, the alive one, the one that was still alive. You fucking heartless idiot. You mean his older brother? Like,
yeah, why couldn't he just say brother, not alive?
Right? That's so,
Terry explains that there were about 20 to 40 people out looking in the wooded area. He said there was only the one police officer, Regina Meeks, until her shift changed. Then another male police officer was there, but he stayed in his car and never went into the woods. He says he picked Pam up at 1 o'clock and, quote, not only are we looking in the wooded area, but people kept saying, well, there's 3 boys riding their bikes over here. We seen 3 boys over here. Someone said 3 boys. Then we'd go everywhere, we heard. I know I did. I don't know what time I was in the woods. I seen Mark and his wife Melissa driving down the service road looking in the woods. Mitchell then asks if there's anything else he can think of, something that, quote, you remembered that you think might be helpful to us follow up in this investigation. Anything that you might be pertinent or have some value to this case. Terry replies, I know, I seen a picture, and I don't know if this means anything. I seen a picture that Damien Eccles sitting on my couch at my house with Chris and Mike. No, Stevie and Mike on each side of him, I think. Have you seen that? Mitchell says, no, sir, I have not. Where did you see that picture? Terry says, quote, I think Gary Gitchell had it. I don't know how he got it. Like I said, it was on my couch. I don't know. I don't remember that, of course. I know we didn't know Damien Eccles and none of them boys, but I don't know how he got with our couch and that picture got done. But I've heard about this picture somewhere else. Mitchell then asked, did you know any of the Terry interrupts and says no. Mitchell asks if this picture Terry is talking about, if he actually saw it or did he just hear about it. Terry now says he heard about it, but doesn't remember if he did see it. He said he heard about it from John Mark Byers. That quote, Byers, he said someone got this picture. Say, Gary Gitchell told him. It seems like Gary talked to me about that one time.
This picture does not exist, by the way.
Oh, really?
Yeah, there's no picture of Damien Eccles with these boys. It's just made up.
It's all made up shit.
Yeah.
All right. Well, the picture has never been found and most likely doesn't exist.
Oh my God. Fuck's sakes. Sorry.
Gary Gitchell has never mentioned this picture. We can assume that if Gary Gitchell did have such a picture, it would have been all over this case. Mitchell thanks Terry for coming to talk to him, telling him how much he appreciated his time, and starts wrapping up the meeting. But Terry then says, well, I quit what? Lynn is up to because, like, ever since her kid died, and that was a sad thing, the way all this has happened, she's constantly reminded Pam that when Pam was still with me, you're still with that son of a bitch that killed our brother, and I didn't kill her brother. They just, I don't know what happened out there in the woods that night or day, whenever. But for them to try to blame it on Mark, blame it on me, blame it on, and not let someone rest from this, they don't continue this discussion. They just move on to talk about the movie being made and Terry's book. On Thursday, June 21st, 2007, Mitchell spoke to David Jacoby via a phone call. Mitchell asked Jacoby to tell him what he remembers from that day, including any contact that he might have had with Terry and Pam Hobbs during that day, that night into the next day. Jacoby says that Terry came by his house between 5:30 6 o'clock. He had his little daughter with him. They played the guitar for a while. Then Terry said he had to go see if Stevie was home when Jacoby asked him where Stevie was. Terry had told him he was out riding his bike that his grandpa had bought him. Stevie was supposed to come by before dark, which would have been around 8. Jacoby said they had played guitar for at least an hour. He confirmed that, as far as he knew, Pam was working, and that later that night or that evening, she came by and told us that they still hadn't found Stevie.
Okay, hang on. That makes me think that Terry had seen Stevie. Because remember, Pam said he was supposed to be home by 4:30, right? And then Terry is saying he did not see Stevie at all that day.
Mm-hmm.
But then David Jacoby, who has zero reason to lie, says Stevie was supposed to come by before dark.
Mm-hmm.
So what if Terry did see him, but isn't admitting to that, right? What if he did see him and say, hey, look, you just come by Jacoby's house for 8 o'clock?
Mm-hmm.
And whether he said that or whether something else happened and then he's just told David Jacoby this, we don't know.
Right.
But for David Jacoby to say this, it just seems like that did happen.
Right.
He has no reason to lie about it.
No, he doesn't. Mitchell asked if after Terry left, if he saw him again that night. Jacoby said, yeah, a couple more times. At one point that night when he came back, I think I went with him to look for the kid.
Like, it's just the way they talk.
But, like, how do you not know that you went?
Right.
What do you mean you think you went?
I think he's more meaning, like, he just can't he did go, he just can't remember exactly at what points and times that he went. It's 14 years later, right? So he's going to remember exactly.
Okay. Jacoby said, yeah, a couple more times. At one point that night when he came back, I think I went with him to look for the kid. He said that he and Terry were out looking, and at one point Pam had come by and she was hysterical. And I'm thinking he pulled off ahead of her. So I got in her car with her and we drove to a school where the Cub Scouts meet up or something. Thought maybe he was over there. And I don't remember before or after if this was before or after, but we wound up walking through those woods with her dad. Some people was from out that neighborhood. I was out until like 3 o'clock that morning with them. Not all together. Everyone was kind of branched off.
Mitchell then asked if he really went into the wooded area known as Robin Hood. Jacoby said, "Yes, sir. At one point, we got to a ditch. I remember seeing some footprints going down. I know it was a bicycle tire prints going down in the ditch. And then we got up. There was a pipe that crossed the ditch, got up to walk across that pipe, and there was some muddy footprints on the pipe. I don't remember. I think we went on across the pipe and walked on through, down along the ditch bank and through more woods." Jacoby said that he and Terry, John Mark Byers, and Mr. Jackie Hicks were searching the woods, but there were also some other people either behind them or maybe a little further ahead of them, because he could hear them calling the kids by name. Jacoby said he and Terry have only spoken maybe 4 or 5 times since Stevie's funeral, but he hadn't seen him in 3 or 4 years. The main differences between the two statements being that Jacoby said they played guitar for at least an hour, then Terry left and came back a couple of times. Terry said they didn't play guitar and that Jacoby went with him at 6 to 6:30 to search. Jacoby said he didn't go searching until it was already starting to get dark, which would have put him closer to 8 p.m. On October 12, 2009, 3 new eyewitnesses came forward and provided sworn statements that they saw Stephen Branch, Christopher Byers, and Michael Moore with Terry Hobbs, the stepfather of Stevie Branch, at 6:30 p.m. on Wednesday, May 5, 1993, immediately before the time the boys disappeared. Remember, Terry said in his interview with Mitchell that he was searching for them in the woods between 6 to 6:30. The witnesses said that Terry Hobbs was calling loudly at the children and ordering them to return to his house. The new evidence establishes that the last person who had custody of the 3 boys before they vanished and died was Terry Hobbs. Jamie Clark Ballard, who lived only 3 doors down from Terry and Pam Hobbs, has supplied a sworn affidavit, as have her mother and her sister.
Ballard states in her sworn affidavit that, quote, "Between 5:30 p.m. and 6:30 p.m., I saw Stevie Branch, Michael Moore, and Christopher Byers playing in my backyard. I am absolutely, completely, and totally positive that I saw Terry Hobbs hollering at Stevie, Michael, and Christopher to get back down to the Hobbs house at approximately 6:30 p.m. If Terry Hobbs said he did not see Stevie Branch, Michael Moore, or Christopher Byers on May 5th, 1993, he is not telling the truth. I know for a fact that Terry Hobbs saw, was with, and spoke to Stevie, Michael, or Christopher on May 5th, 1993. Terry, however, has repeatedly said that he never saw the 3 boys the day they were murdered. According to the motion prepared by Dennis Riordan and Don Horgan, Eccles attorneys, it has previously been established that Hobbs was never questioned by police during the original investigation of the crimes, despite the fact that the lead detective in the investigation of the murders had conceded both that when a child homicide occurs, police should always consider the parents of the child as potential suspects, and that is, quote, statistically proven that homicide victims are usually the result of family, close friends, and known acquaintances. The eyewitnesses who saw the boys in the backyard prior to returning to the Hobbs home were never questioned by the police on the day of the murders. According to the affidavit of Jamie Clark Ballard, quote, "Following the murders, the police never came to interview me or my family. In fact, after the murders, I do not recall ever seeing any police vehicles on my street or seeing any police interviewing any of the people in my neighborhood." Terry Hobbs filed a defamation lawsuit against the Dixie Chicks and lead singer Natalie Maines on November 25, 2008. Maines highlighted a habeas corpus petition, which is a legal procedure that allows a person who is imprisoned or detained to challenge the lawfulness of their confinement. She highlighted a habeas corpus petition from the West Memphis 3 legal team. She noted that recent DNA testing found a hair matching Hobbs' DNA inside the ligature knot used to bind one of the murdered victims. She wrote, quote, I am confident that you will see the DNA evidence is irrefutable. She pointed to newly submitted eyewitness affidavits, claiming Hobbs lied under oath and was actually the last person seen with the 3 children before they vanished. Because Hobbs chose to file this lawsuit, Maine's legal team was granted the right to depose him, forcing Hobbs to answer questions under oath about his alibi, background, and connection to the crime in a way he had never been questioned before. This deposition did not go well for Hobbs and definitely didn't clear his name.
Davidson begins his questioning by asking Hobbs if there was any reason he couldn't give truthful testimony. Hobbs responds, well, if I don't remember something, it's that happens. Davidson then says, you've done drugs in the past, haven't you? Hobbs replies, I'm not a druggie. Davidson, Mr. Hobbs, did you not understand my question? Hobbs, I heard your question. I tried medications in the past. So already we're off to a great start. He does eventually admit he had smoked a joint. When asked if he had done anything else, he says, young and dumb, you probably will try anything. And I haven't tried anything, but I've never been in the drug world. I'm not on drugs, never been on drugs. Davidson, so it's your testimony that the only drugs that you have ever done are drugs that have been prescribed to you or a joint or two. Is that your testimony under oath, Mr. Hobbs? Hobbs, well, Davidson, and remember, you are under oath. Hobbs replies, I know that. Davidson, so my question is, other than drugs that a physician has prescribed, Hobbs, I tried cocaine a few times. Big deal. Davidson, tried cocaine a few times, so we've got some joints, some cocaine, and what other drugs? Sorry.
Right? Like, I've never done drugs.
I can't.
I've never done drugs. I'm not a druggie. Yeah, okay,
well,
I tried cocaine.
Maybe I did this.
Like, what the fuck? There is a big jump from a joint or two to cocaine.
I know, right?
What the
No,
fuck?
there's a big jump from prescription meds.
Yeah,
to
only that's been
cocaine.
prescribed. Dude.
Oh my God.
You're like a 15, 16-year-old trying to be like, no, Mom, I've never done drugs.
Yeah. Okay, well,
Never.
maybe. No.
Okay, I've had Tylenol. Okay, I smoked a joint.
Yeah. Right. That's exactly what it's
Right?
like. Yeah.
Fuck's sakes, dude. It
Yeah.
gets worse, too. It gets worse.
So Davison asks what other drugs, and Hobbs replies, none. Davison, crystal meth? Hobbs replies, I'm not into it.
Oh, no, I'm not in it, which is
Okay.
worse.
Hobbs, I'm not in it.
Most people are not in crystal meth. They are on crystal
Yes,
meth.
exactly.
But whatever.
Davidson, I'm sorry. So he's just as confused as
Yeah.
I am.
Right?
Okay, Hobbs, I'm not in the business. Davidson, that's not my question. My question, Hobbs replies, I don't do crystal meth.
You're protesting that you're not in the business of crystal meth. You were not asked if you were in the business of it.
Exactly.
You were asked if you tried it.
All right, Davison, my question, sir, is under oath. Is it your testimony that you have never done crystal meth? Hobbs, I tried it with my wife.
Right?
Oh my gosh, so funny. We go from prescription meds to, okay, maybe a joint, to, okay, maybe cocaine, to, okay, I've done crystal meth.
Right? Davison says, okay, I'll be honest. As part of this lawsuit, I have learned more about the events of May the 5th than I ever knew about. And I'll also be honest in that in reading these materials, looking at your police interviews, reading your journals, listening to what other people said, it's still unclear to me as to what happened that night. So I wanted you to tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury, in your own words, what happened that night and what you did from when you got off work until the 3 little boys were found. I want you to tell us, in your own words, what happened. Can you do that? Hobbs replies, I can. I'm assuming there's like this long pause. And then Davison says, please do. Then Hobbs says, but I'd rather not. Dude, what the fuck do you think you're there for? Answer the goddamn questions.
Or why say I can if you're not going to answer?
Right? He's just. I honestly, if anyone out there just wants to spend some time reading, go on the Callahan website and just read through this deposition. It's hysterical, infuriating, frustrating, again, hysterical, all mixed in one. Like, the best book you could ever read is this deposition. And the fact that it's all real is just fucking batshit. So once Davidson reminds him he has no choice, and he was the one who brought the lawsuit to the courts, he concedes. He says he came home from work May the 5th, 1993, noticed that one of his children was not home. Asked his wife, where is Stevie? Pam says he's gone off riding his bicycle with his friend Michael Moore. Then he did what any other parent would have done, went outside, looked down the street. He was supposed to be home by 4:30. Close to 5 o'clock, he and Pam decided to go ahead and take Pam to work. They stopped by the Moore's house on the way over there to take Pam to work, but they were not home. Hobbs says he and Amanda stopped at the Moore's home on the way back to see if the boys had made it there. They were not there, so they drove around the neighborhood looking for them. Then they went back home, parked the car, and he and Amanda walked around the neighborhood. They didn't see them, so they headed back to their house, and Dana Moore pulled up in the driveway, but he doesn't remember what time it was. She asked if Michael was there, and Hobbs said no. Is Stevie at yours? She said. No. Dana said he was heading back to her house. Hobbs said he would follow her over there and see if the boys were there. The boys were not there, but John Mark Byers came walking across the street. Again, he didn't know what time it was. Then they split up and start looking for them. Dawn, Michael Moore's older sister, stays home and says she'll wait by the phone in case somebody calls. And Terry took his daughter over to David Jacoby and his wife Bobby. Hobbs said David went with him and they started riding around looking for the little boys. At the same time, Mark and Melissa Byers are riding around looking for their boy, and we continued this for all the way up to the next morning. Davidson says, okay, I need to fill in a few blanks. How long were you at Mr. Jacoby's house? Hobbs says, long enough to drop his daughter off and see if David would go help him. He went around with me and we rode around looking. He sure did, all the way up till early in the morning. So he leaves out, in this story, he leaves out the fact that he went into the woods with Amanda, that him and Regina Meeks and John Mark Byers are searching in the woods. Like, he leaves out all those specific details that he had just told the other cop. Doesn't tell him any of them here. Is it because he forgot the lies that he told that time? Or is it because he just is trying to get through this as fast as he can? Or, like, why are the stories different?
I feel like it's because he's lying.
Yeah.
And because he's lying, he doesn't remember what he lied about, so he skipped half of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
When asked what time he left Amanda at Mr. Jacoby's house, Hobbs says he doesn't know. Do you recall playing guitars at his house that night? Hobbs says no. He said he didn't smoke any marijuana while at his house. Davidson asked if someone were to testify that they saw the three little boys standing behind you on the evening of May the 5th prior to the time that you went to pick up Pam, they'd be mistaken? Hobbs replies, most definitely. I can't wait to hear that one. When asked what time did you stop looking with Mr. Jacoby, Hobbs replies, David had to be at work May the 6th, roughly early a.m. May the 6th. Hobbs said he called the police to report that Stevie was missing when he picked Pam up from work at 9 p.m. May the 5th. He said, didn't you call the police sooner because, quote, I was busy looking and just thinking he was playing at some boy's house. Davidson asked if he was mad at Stevie for being out so late. Then, quote, didn't you tell the police in June of 2007 that you used to hit him with a belt? Hobbs said he wasn't mad and, quote, we correct him with a belt. We would whoop him with a belt. But no, we didn't go around hitting with belts. Hobbs said that when he and Jacoby were driving around looking for Stevie prior to 9 o'clock, they got out of the car to look. Davidson asked, did you ever end up walking around in what's referred to as Robin Hill? Hobbs said, we have redone that. Davidson asked for clarification. So you and Mr. Jacoby got out and walked around in the Robin Hood Hills area prior to the time you picked Pam up looking for the little boys. Hobbs, I'm not sure if Ree went to Robin Hood, but Ree was all over West Memphis looking for them. Davidson, my question to you, sir, is when you and Mr. Jacoby were looking for the 3 little boys prior to that time that you picked up Pam, did you get out of the car and walk around the Robin? Hobbs, I'm not sure. He's a hot mess.
Right?
He is. Davison, well, wouldn't that be something? That would seem to be something that you would remember. If that's where the little boys were eventually found and you were there. So it's your testimony. You can't recall if you searched the area where the 3 little boys were actually found. Hobbs replies, correct. No, we didn't. Davison, okay. And then anything else that you did other than drive around with Mr. Jacoby in and out of the car, different places prior to the time that you picked him up, that you picked up Pam? Hobbs, not that I recall. Hobbs said he picked up Pam at 9 o'clock and she came out with 2 pieces of candy and asked where Stevie was. And Hobbs said, we haven't found him yet. Hobbs then claims that Pam said he's dead. Then one of them called the police, but he didn't remember who. When Davison asks, you don't remember if you called the police or Pam called the police, Hobbs replies, sure don't care.
Dick.
Total dick.
Right? Like, what do you mean you don't care who called the police?
Yeah.
What?
And yeah, like...
And as if you don't remember if it was you who called the police to report your son missing.
Right? That's something I would remember 14 years later.
Right? You would remember that until the day you die.
Yeah.
Making that phone call would be horrific.
Yeah, exactly. Hobbs said they then left Catfish Island and went to Robin Hood with the police because that's the last place that they had heard that someone had seen them. Davison said, well, wait a second now. Who said that they had seen the boys at Robin Hood? Hobbs says, a lot of people. I don't know their names. Davison, can you give me one person who told you prior to the time that the police came to Catfish, who told you that they had seen the boys at Robin Hood? Hobbs, no, I cannot. Hobbs said at no point was he alone searching for Stevie anytime between 4 and 7 o'clock. It was always with either Jacoby or 4-year-old Amanda. After he picked up Pam, they went to Robin Hood with police officer Regina Meek first, but he doesn't recall how long they searched for. They then went back home and they changed clothes and went back out with Jacoby after dropping Amanda off there again. Hobbs said it was kind of hard to get your focus off of Robin Hood because we were told that they were last seen going into Robin Hood and not knowing was Robin Hood was. When you go out there and look at it, it was a place that you didn't want to see your kids hanging out at, so we went back to Robin Hood. Davison asked, were there areas of the woods that you just didn't go back in because you didn't like the feeling? Hobbs said, just didn't. We didn't know what was out there. Davison, that's not my question. My question was, were there parts of the woods that you have said that you just got a bad feeling and you didn't want to go back into? Hobbs replies, yeah.
Could you imagine, like, I get it. There's 3 8-year-old boys missing. You know, one of them is my son. But I don't want to go in those woods because I don't know what's in there.
Yeah, those words are eerie to me.
Right. If you don't know what's in there, maybe you should go doubly make sure that your fucking 8-year-old isn't in there.
Yeah.
Right? Like, what the fuck? Davison says, describe that for me. Hobbs says, well, it's dark. And you don't know what's out there, so you just don't want to go out there. Davison,
Bullshit.
Right?
Bullshit.
Exactly. Davison says, but your stepson is out there. Hobbs says, well, we didn't know that. Davison says, well, you know he's somewhere. Hobbs says, well, we didn't know he was out there. Davison then says, you knew he was out there missing. Hobbs replies, we knew he was last seen going somewhere. Someone said they had last seen him going in there. We did not know he was out there. Davison says, and did you say, I'm not going back in there? Hobbs says, I don't recall that. Dave, conveniently. Davison says, "Did you say I have a bad feeling about this place? I'm not going back there." Hobbs, "Well, it was part of it. I might have said that." Davison says, "Who would you have told that to? I've got a bad feeling about this place. I'm not going back there." Hobbs says, "David and my father-in-law, Jackie Hicks Sr." Davidson, "Oh, Jackie was with you now too?" Hobbs says, "He was." Davidson says, "Who else was with you?" Hobbs, "Well, there was different people at different times. We were in and out of Robin Hood all night long." After they dropped Jacoby off at his house, Terry said he and Pam went back to their house. They went to school the boys attended in the morning of the 6th to see if he had arrived at the school. He did not. He said between the time they dropped Jacoby off and going to the school, the media showed up and did a live interview because they had been trying to get, we were in and out of the police department 2 or 3 times that night down there asking them for help. Hobbs testified that Jacoby was either with Pam or him and Pam all night. Hobbs also testified that he, quote, believed there was never a point in time when he was alone between 1 and 6 a.m. and that at no point did he do laundry. This guy. Like, you don't remember, you're leaving things out. Like, this is, I don't know, if I was suspected of a crime, every time I was asked to retell my whereabouts, I would do my best to include absolutely everything and everybody I saw. And he's skipping over, like, he's then saying, like, oh, it was just me and Jacoby. Oh, wait. And then me and Pam. Oh, wait. Jackie Hicks might have been there too. Oh, but I also was in and out of the police department 2 or 3 times. You fucking never mentioned that before.
Mm-hmm.
Where did that come from? Like, dude.
And then everyone else's stories don't match his.
Right? I just can't with the, I'm so scared to go in the woods. Like, you big fucking baby. Oh my God. Like, so that to me says he knows something is in that woods. He knows that, like, stay out of this area because it's scary.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to lie. I'm going to be like a little sexist there, but he's a man. He should be in the woods.
Oh, fuck yeah. Like, I'm sorry. I don't play into this whole, like, men shouldn't be Yeah, goddamn. Yeah, man, get in there. Scary. You go.
Yeah, exactly.
Man, you go. I have no problem admitting I need a man for scary shit. But scary, man, go first. That's you big, you scary, you fix it.
Davison notes that the prosecution claimed that Mr. Eccles had sodomized the boys, right? And yet none of Mr. Eccles' DNA was found on any of the boys, including the one that was allegedly sodomized. He then states, quote, "As a matter of fact, the only DNA that was found on the boys was DNA that couldn't be identified to anyone. Isn't that right? Well, other than yours, of course." Hobbs then claims that they, quote, "have never said nothing about mine. The defense team brought mine up. It wasn't the law. This is what they do." Davison goes on to say, quote, "As a matter of fact, is it really a surprise that the West Memphis police had spent so much time and so much money over the years saying they got it right with the convictions, that when DNA attributed to someone else was found in the ligature of one of the victims, that they attributed it to secondary transfer? Hobbs, what if it was secondary transfer?" Davison, what if it wasn't? Hobbs, what are you saying? Davison then finally says what everyone has been thinking. "I'm saying that there could be a question about whether or not you were somehow involved in these crimes." Hobbs responds, "Well, who says that? Bunch of quacks?" Davison then asks, "How do you explain Mr. Jacoby's DNA?" Hobbs admits he has no explanation for that. Davison asks, "You were in those woods all night, just you and Mr. Jacoby?" Hobbs, now getting quite agitated, says, "No, we done been over that. Did you forget?" Davison, "You and Mr. Jacoby, were you guys ever alone when you were searching?" Hobbs, "Probably not. There might have been a while." Davison, And it's your testimony. Mr. Jacoby was with you all night in the woods. Hobbs, we were together quite a bit that night. Davidson, no, that's not my question. My question is, you testified earlier that you and Mr. Jacoby were together all night in the woods until it was time for him to go to work. Hobbs, exactly. Davidson, so at no point were you alone? Hobbs, no.
Davison then asks, how many guns did you own back in 93? Hobbs admitted to 2 or 3, but says he doesn't remember what kind they were. That is until Davison asked, do you recall the type, the millimeter? Hobbs replied, 357, 25, 9 millimeter. When asked what happened to the guns, Hobbs says, probably the Hicks stole them. Davidson then asked if he was aware that the police found a gun in the Robin Hood Hills area in 93, 94. Hobbs replied, I don't care about that. Davidson say, do you recall if it was same caliber gun that you just said you had and now you don't know where it is? Hobbs replies, no. When Davison asks, would that surprise you that they found a gun at the scene? Hobbs says, it don't mean nothing to me because it ain't my gun. Davison, ain't your gun? Where is your gun? Hobbs, ask the Hicks. They take stuff. Hobbs claimed he didn't carry his gun with him, so he didn't have it on him on the 5th or 6th. Okay, so Davison then asks if Hobbs gave a DNA sample to the police in 93. Hobbs says, sure. Davison says, did you give your DNA sample? Hobbs replies, sure. They got fingerprint, feet prints. When Davidson says they got fingerprint and feet print, my question is, did you give the police the DNA? Hobbs replies, seems like we did in 93. I was thinking we might have. Davison asks if he was interviewed by the police in 93, and Hobbs says he was, but couldn't remember by who, only that it was by a different one. Davison asks, how many times? Hobbs replies, I'm not sure. Yeah, he was asked questions too. Davidson, did you give new DNA sample then? Hobbs replies, I don't think so. Finger and feet. Hobbs says they didn't take a bite imprint, which they should have considering at the time they believe the boys had been bitten by the murderer. Oh.
Yeah, but see, they didn't do any, all they did was take fingerprints and feet prints because they
Right.
did find a footprint that they wasn't sure.
Yeah.
They thought it was related to the murder, but
Yeah.
it didn't
Yeah.
match anyone, right?
Yeah. Hobbs admits that he had since had his teeth pulled because I needed them pulled. I had some bad disease. However, when asked what disease he had, Hobbs replies, I'm not sure. He also couldn't remember how many teeth he had pulled and wouldn't give an approximation.
Like, I don't know, they just pulled my teeth,
Like,
but I can't
bro,
remember why. Like, what? But
right?
see,
I had a disease.
yeah, like, and I'm sure there are diseases that like totally destroy your teeth,
Yeah. Like the smoking
but
too much crack disease.
right?
Sorry.
Or the meth, right? Like meth is bad for your teeth.
Oh my God.
But I feel like if you had to have all your teeth pulled, you're gonna remember why,
You're absolutely gonna remember why. You probably, yeah, like gum disease,
right?
right?
Like
Like
even
yeah,
if he had them pulled because he was worried about the bite mark
yeah,
and like and stuff, dipshit, gum disease. It's the most
yeah.
basic thing. That's all you had to say. I had gum disease.
hmm
But he couldn't even think of that. Like
No,
admitting that I'm not sure why was him not being quick enough to think of a lie.
yeah, yeah. Questioning then switched to another lawyer, Miss Davis. She asked, did the West Memphis Police Department take your fingerprints in 1993 when you and Pam went down to talk to the officers? Hobbs replies, I'm not sure. Davis then asks if the WMPD gave him a lie detector test. Hobbs replies, I don't think so. Davis, have you ever been given a lie detector test by anyone regarding the events on the night of May 5th, 1993? Hobbs replies, I don't believe so.
But should have.
Well, they fucked up.
Right?
They did a big boo-boo.
Yeah, exactly.
They did that the whole thing though.
Oh, the
thing.
whole thing is fucked up.
Just a disaster.
Yeah. So when asked if he would agree to take a lie detector test provided by a reputable polygraph operator, Hobbs says, "No, why should I?" Davis says, "Well, you seem so intent on wanting the world to know that you were not involved in those murders. And step one of that might be taking a lie detector test." Hobbs responds, "Step one might be call the police. Step two, call the prosecutor." Dude.
Right?
Davis then says, "I'm duly noting what you're saying. Step one, call the police. They don't consider you a suspect. Step two, call the prosecutor. The prosecutor didn't prosecute you. I hear what you're saying, but is there any reason that, just to be clear and just to let the world know, this world, that this has such concerns and has caused you so much pain, thinking that you might have been involved in those murders? Is there any other reason, other than what you have told me, why you wouldn't agree to have a lie detector test to demonstrate you weren't involved in the murders?" Hobbs replies, "I don't need to prove myself." "That's why you're fucking there, dipshit."
Mm-hmm.
Davis then says, "But you're adamant. You're sure that you would not agree to take a lie detector test as you sit here today." Hobbs replies, "I don't have to. I ain't done nothing wrong." Davis then says, "In your journals, when you talk about searching the night of May 5th in the woods, and you get to a scary part of the woods where you felt a real presence of evil, do you recall that happening?" Hobbs says, "I do recall that." Davis says, "Okay, so you did not tell anybody about the feeling presence of evil in the woods on the night of May the 5th, 1993, correct?" Hobbs says, "I'm not sure." Davis then says, "In fact, that area you claim was the area where the bodies of the three little boys, including Stevie, were ultimately found, correct?" Hobbs, "No, no. I walked down this little path about 10, 15 feet. I don't know how much further down the path the boys' bodies was, but it was down there somewhere." Davis then asks, "Did you hear any tree limbs falling while you were in the woods looking?" Hobbs says, "I heard some break. Me and Pam was together when this happened." Davis questions Hobbs as to why there are several different versions through the different journals, through his supplemental interrogatories, through this West Memphis Police Department interview regarding what time he called the police to report Stevie missing. In the Dimensions film account, he says that he called the police between 5 to 5:30 to report Stevie missing, and that he did that before he ever met Mark Byers. Yet the West Memphis Police Department phone logs reflect that at 9:19 he called to report Stevie missing, and there is no log for any call by him to report Stevie missing prior to 9:19. Hobbs simply says, "Okay." Davis asks, "Why then in your journals are there different accounts?" Hobbs replies, "What's wrong with that?" Oh my God. How? Like, why, dude?
Davis, it sounds like you're not telling the truth, to be candid, sir. Hobbs, it's just a book. Davis, it sounds like you're not telling the truth in the book. Were you trying to be honest in your journals? Hobbs says, "Well, you know never what happened. It's just a book." Davis, is it a fiction book? Hobbs, well, I don't know. Davis, it may end up being a fiction book. Hobbs, I'm not sure. I hope it's a true story. Which is strange, as the journals were written shortly after the murders. So why would he be misconstruing the truth at that point? Davis asked him to clarify what time he went over to Dana Moore's house, and 5 minutes later met Mark Byers. Hobbs says he's not sure. Davis says that in the Dimension Films interview, he said it was 6 o'clock. With the West Memphis Police Department, he said it was 5:30 or 6. Hobbs just says, again, I don't remember when it was. Davis asked, were you searching the Robin Hood Hills area with David Jacoby at 6 p.m.? Hobbs says, I can't answer that. Davis then asks, in all of your versions of the events, and by that I mean two different versions in the journals, the interrogatory responses, the Dimension Films interview, and everything but the West Memphis Police Department interview, you never mentioned seeing a black bum on the morning of May 6 of 1993. But in June of 2007, when you're being interviewed by the West Memphis Police Department, you mentioned seeing a black bum. Did you or did you not see a black bum? Hobbs replies, me and Pam both seen this guy. Davis, why did you not take any action from May 5th of 1993 until June 21st of 2007 to alert the police or any law enforcement agency that you had seen a black bum departing the Robin Hood Hills? Hobbs, for what reason? Davis, to help find who committed the murder of your son, sir? Hobbs, they had 3 boys incarcerated. Davis, from May 5th of 1993 through to June of 1993, the police were looking for suspects, were they not? Hobbs, yeah, that's right. Davis, and in fact, the case was featured on America's Most Wanted because the police were desperate for leads, correct? Hobbs, okay. Davis, and in that month period, you never went to a law enforcement agent and said, I saw a black bum leaving the Robin Hood Hills area where the bodies were ultimately found on the morning of May 6 of 1993. Did you? Hobbs, seems like we did tell them that. I'm just guessing. Davis, did you never mention the black bum in any of your versions of the accounts, sir? Hobbs, I have no explanation for that, but we did see a guy out there. Davis, but you didn't tell anybody that could have done anything about it, did you, sir? Hobbs, at the time we seen the man, we didn't know that we had 3 dead boys. Davis, but you knew later that day, you knew that next day, the next week, didn't you, sir? Hobbs, it seems like it was brought up.
I feel like he was like, well, I mean, they've already got the 3 boys that are arrested. Let's not go mixing shit up.
Yeah. Davis then asks, and if David Jacoby were to testify that when you came to his door after dropping Pam Hobbs off at work at Catfish Island after 5 p.m. on May 5th of 1993, and that he saw Stevie on his bicycle and 2 other boys with him over your shoulder out in the street, would he be lying? Hobbs replies, I guess, because that didn't happen. Davis, if David Jacoby told the West Memphis Police Department that you told him on the night of May 5th, 1993, that you had seen Stevie and told Stevie to be back before dark, would he be lying? Hobbs replies, that didn't happen.
That's his famous line, right?
Yeah, that's his.
Yeah.
Davis asks Hobbs if he would be willing to provide full palm and handprints to a reputable expert, and Hobbs says he already has. When asked if he would be willing to provide it again, he says no. You can get them from the state. Davis then notes, it seems to me that somebody in your position who has been wrongfully accused, per your allegations, would want to do anything and everything to demonstrate that they were not involved in any way in the murder of their son. Hobbs says he already has. Davis then says if the next steps would be to give, even again, a palm or a handprint, or give a polygraph, but you staunchly refuse to do that. Is that correct? Hobbs replies, correct. Hobbs said that Miss Regina Meek came out to the wooded area. We followed her over there. She got out of her car, she walked down in the woods just a few minutes, and she came back. However, Miss Meek testifies in deposition exhibit number 22 that she was out of her car for 3 to 4 minutes and did not cross the pipe bridge into the woods. Hobbs, on numerous occasions, said that that meeting in the front yard with Miss Moore and Mr. Byers occurred around 6 or 6:30 p.m. on May 5th of 1993. However, Miss Moore testified that she saw the boys at 6 p.m. on May 5th of 1993. Mr. Byers states, in fact, I met Hobbs at my house at approximately 8:20 or 8:30 p.m. I know it was 8:20 or 8:30 p.m. or so because, number one, Dana Moore had last seen the boys riding their bikes around 6 p.m. and 2, I called the police to report Christopher missing around 8:08 p.m. Simply put, I did not, and Dana Moore did not, even think the boys were missing at 6 p.m. or 6:30 p.m.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Jacoby stated, I believe I saw Terry's stepson, Stevie Branch, ride by on his bicycle in the street in front of my house. I also believe I saw two other little boys with Stevie. One of the other boys who went by the front of my house was on a bicycle, and the other boy was on a skateboard. Terry and Amanda came inside my house. Amanda played with toys, and Terry and I sat down and played guitars for up to an hour. At some point, while Terry and I were playing guitars, I asked, "Where is Stevie?" Because Stevie usually came over to my house with Terry and Amanda, and also Pam Hobbs when she came over. Terry responded that Stevie was riding his bike between approximately 6 p.m. and 6:30 p.m. on May 5th, 1993. Terry got up from playing guitars and told me that he was going to his house to see if Stevie was at home. Terry told me that Stevie was supposed to be home, and he thought for sure Stevie would be home before dark, or by dark, or something to that effect. Terry then left my house. I am 90% sure that Terry left Amanda at my house for me and my wife to watch, and Terry left my house alone. Terry was gone from my house for a while. Terry returned to my house later and asked if Stevie had come by. When I said no, I volunteered to go out with Terry to ride with him to look for Stevie. Terry and I drove around the neighborhood for approximately 10 to 15 minutes looking for Stevie. We drove near some apartments. We did not stop at any houses or talk to anyone at this point. Terry then dropped me off at my house and said he was going to check a few other places for Stevie. I believe Terry again left alone with Amanda staying at my house. After a while, Terry drove back to my house. I again went with Terry to ride around and look for Stevie. We drove 2 more times, nearly the same route we had driven before. I remember that we again went by the apartment complex and saw some kids playing. Terry told the kids that he was looking for a little blonde-headed boy. A little black girl told Terry that she had seen that there were some boys riding their bikes near the woods, near the apartments, which were the Robin Hood Hills woods. Terry again took me home and dropped me off because it was getting dark and I was going to change clothes and get flashlights to search further. I did not know where Terry went, but I expected him to come back to get me. I believe he took Amanda with him. I changed clothes, but Terry never showed back up. I was not in Robin Hood Hills searching for Stevie or other missing children, alone or with Terry Hobbs on May the 5th, 1993, near 6 p.m. or 6:30 p.m. Hobbs said that none of Jacoby's statement was true.
Davis, Mr. Hobbs, your journals contradict themselves with regards to the events of May 5th of 1993. Are you aware of that? Answer that. Hobbs, well, the time frame might be wrong, but a lot of them events as I'd seen them happened. Davis, you've told many different versions of what you did after dropping Pam Hobbs off at work around 5 on May 5th of 1993. But in all of those versions, you were always searching for Stevie the whole time, correct? Hobbs replies, correct. Davis, now, David Jacoby is saying that you came over to his house at 5 something and played guitar for about an hour. Hobbs, I don't recall that. Davis, you repeatedly said that you were with Mark Byers and Dana Moore at 6 p.m., but Dana Moore and Mark Byers say you weren't. Hobbs, well, I know we met in their front yard. Like I said, I'm not sure of the time. Davis, you told the West Memphis police that you searched the woods with Regina Meek, and she said you never went in the woods, correct? Hobbs, well, we walked down inside the woods. Davis, you told the West Memphis Police Department that you were searching the woods with David Jacoby from 6 p.m. to 6:30 p.m., and he says y'all weren't. Hobbs, well, I'm not sure of the time. Davis, and now you admit that it was at 9:19 p.m., and that was the only time you called? Hobbs, that was after I picked Pam up. Davis, you told Pam that you had Amanda with you the whole time from when you dropped her off at 5 p.m. and picked her up at 9 p.m. But now you admit that you left her at Jacoby's house, correct? Hobbs, I didn't tell Pam I had her, and I did leave her at David's house. Davis, you said you saw a black bum in 2007 for the first time. You say you saw a black bum on May 6th, and Pam says there was no black bum. Hobbs, there was. Davis, you said you aren't a violent man, but you've admitted you've hit your wife. Hobbs, I've slapped her. Davis, you shot your wife's brother, who thought that you were involved in the murders, and he ultimately died from complications of that gunshot wound. Mildred French says you beat your first wife and child. Judy Sadler, Marie Hicks, and Jolynn McCaughey said Stevie said you beat him, and Amanda, in her own handwriting, prays that your blood will be taken out of her because you were so violent and angry and beat the hell out of her. What is your response to that, sir? Hobbs, I don't have one because all that stuff you just said ain't true. Davis, and none of it concerns you at all? Hobbs, well, sure, you talk about me like I'm a dog.
Like, fuck, man, it's not. That's your concern?
If the
Like,
shoe fits.
right?
He has no remorse.
Exactly. He has zero remorse at all. And the semantics that he argues, I don't hit my wife, I slapped her. I don't beat him with a belt, I correct him with a belt. Like, stop. It's the same fucking thing. Like, stop arguing these stupid little things and just fucking, for once, speak the truth.
Okay, Davis. Pam Hobbs' family thinks you're involved in the murders, correct? Hobbs replies, that's their issues. Davis, and you have a dispute with every single one of your alibi witnesses. Dana Moore, Mark Byers, Regina Meek, David Jacoby, Pam Hobbs, everyone except 4-year-old Amanda, correct? Hobbs replies, you know what? You're so close to West Memphis Police Department, you could drive. You're welcome to drive over there, look at the videotapes. I'm on the videotapes 3 times going down to the police station asking for help. David Jacoby, Pam Hobbs, Mary Hicks, Jackie Hicks, Sr., we're all 5 of us together going down at that police station. Davis, have you ever seen those videotapes? Hobbs replies, I don't have to. It's on a recording. No. Davis, no one can corroborate being with you or your whereabouts for the time period from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. or 8:30 p.m. Isn't that true, sir? You don't have anybody. Hobbs replies, my daughter was with me. Davis, and from 6 p.m. to 8:30, according to David Jacoby, he's got Amanda. You don't. Hobbs replies, so? Davis, so my point is, there's not any witnesses, not any of your alibi witnesses can confirm your whereabouts from 6 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. Isn't that true, sir? Hobbs replies, and you're saying what?
Saying you don't have a fucking alibi, dude. How are you that dumb? Davis says, I'm saying that you don't have an alibi witness for 2 to 2.5 hours on the evening of the murders. Hobbs says, I don't know. Davis, does that concern you? Hobbs replies, no. Davis, you say you weren't at the crime scene, but of course DNA matches yours is there, correct? Hobbs says, I don't know. Davis says, you say you weren't at the crime scene, but DNA that matches the friend that you had spent an hour with playing guitar is at the crime scene, correct? Hobbs says, I don't know. Davis says, if you put all of these statements together and all the evidence that I've just run through, and you're the police, would you want to look at Terry Hobbs for this murder? Hobbs says, why don't you take them over to the police and let them look at all this crap? Davis says, none of any of this concerns you. Hobbs says, no. Davis says, do you think it's funny? Because he literally was laughing, by the way. I can't read that in the deposition, but he literally was laughing. Hobbs says, no, I think it's a bunch of crap. And Davis says, did you ever see a photograph of your son, Stevie, on the couch with Damien Eccles? Hobbs replies, I've heard of one. I don't know if I've seen it or not. You don't know if you've seen a photograph of the boy that was accused of murdering your son sitting on a couch, on your couch in your house. You don't know if you've seen that? I'm sorry, wouldn't that be burnt into your brain if you had actually seen that picture? That would haunt you.
But that's where he goes against himself, right? He started with he saw it, then he went to he heard it, and now he doesn't know.
Yeah, and there's no way if Gary Gitchell actually had this photograph, there is no way he wouldn't have used it in the case. It wouldn't have been all over the trial. This photo would
Yeah.
be fucking everywhere. There's no way it wouldn't.
Yeah.
Davis, you made a lot of statements like and or so what or so or why do you respond that way? Hobbs, I don't have to have a reason. Davis, are you agitated or irritated that we're going through these details? Hobbs says no. Davis, Mr. Hobbs, do you even know what's true regarding the events on May 5th or May 6th of 1993? Hobbs says, sure do. Davis, that just may not be included in your journals. Is that correct? Hobbs, well, that might be your theory. Davis, and it might not be included in your Dimension Films interview, The Truth, correct? Hobbs, well, you can call it what you want. Davis, and it might not the truth be included in your interview with the West Memphis Police Department, correct? Hobbs, call it what you want. Davis, are all those statements true, sir? Hobbs, I wouldn't put stocks in none of your statements. Davis, your account to those different entities may or may not be true. That's correct, isn't it, sir? Hobbs, I'm not sure.
In 2002, Pam Hobbs found Stevie's pocket knife among a collection of 14 or 15 other knives owned by Terry Hobbs. This pocket knife was one that Stevie carried with him at all times. In fact, Pam was shocked when West Memphis police did not recover it with his body, but she simply assumed the killer had stolen or discarded it during the crime. Stevie's grandfather gave him the knife. It was a family heirloom, and he loved it. By the time she actually found the knife in Terry Hobbs' possession in 2002, her relationship with local authorities had completely fractured. Bypassing the police, Pam explicitly stated that she chose not to give the knife to the police or prosecutors because she didn't trust them and felt very routinely ignored or swept critical evidence under the rug. Instead, she sent the entire collection to a defense attorney working on behalf of the West Memphis Three. The evidence was publicly revealed 5 years later, in July 2007, when defense lawyers presented it alongside new DNA results during the appeals process. Pam does not believe Damien Eccles, Jason Baldwin, and Jesse Miskelly committed the crimes, nor that the state is looking for other suspects, and she wants her son's bicycle back, along with other items now in an evidence room at the West Memphis Police Department. She wants to give the evidence to defense attorneys, saying, I believe the defense is working, but the state, no. Scott Ellington has to approve the release of the evidence, but Hicks says he has not returned her calls. What does it say to me? It's political, Hicks said. My God, it's my life, but I get so aggravated and so hurt and frustrated. She's talked with the West Memphis police. She feels better knowing the bicycle and the evidence are in the evidence room. She also feels it is safe and will be available if it ever needs to be tested.
That's so sad,
It's so sad.
right? So did Terry Hobbs have time and opportunity to kill the boys on May 5th, 1993? I believe so. I believe he has lied a lot throughout the deposition, his journals, and statements. Although I don't put a lot of stock into a polygraph test, as they're not admissible in court, and they're often false, I think it says something that Terry Hobbs refuses to take one and refuses to give a new DNA sample. His responses to the questions he asks says way more than his actual words do. I think he's 100% hiding something. Now, whether that's his involvement in the crimes is hard to say for sure. It could be his guilt in the fact that he didn't look for Stevie like he claims that he did. It could be guilt for being an abusive father, or simply not taking being unable to find Stevie seriously initially. Unfortunately, we will probably never know, because unless a witness or someone else involved in the crime comes forward, Terry Hobbs won't say. And even if he did, how would we believe him?
It's true.
Yeah. Yeah. So we have one more episode left in our West Memphis 3 series. We're going to go through what John Douglas of the FBI Behavior Analysis Unit, he's like the founder of the BAU, right? He's the founder of that. And one of his other colleagues, which I forget his name right now, we're going to go through like what their theories are. And then in that same episode, we are going to say what our theories are.
I wonder if they're all the same.
They might be. I kind of have a bit of a twist for mine.
Oh, plot twist.
Yeah. So stay tuned for that. And then that's it. So we have one more left. It's hard to believe we're there already.
It's hard to believe we went through 85 episodes.
But honestly, there is so much more we could have gone through. There is so much more. Like, anyone wanting more, go to the Callahan website, check out the prosecutors, check out the books from Dan Sidham.
It's wild. Like, how can there be so much more when, like, nothing got done?
Right? That's just it. There is so much to this case. There's so many expert testimony. We barely scrape the surface of the testimony, right? There's witnesses, like not witnesses of the crime, but like people that saw the boys, people that have said that they saw the boys, but couldn't have seen the boys at that time. There's just so much. But going through and figure out which is right, which is wrong, it's impossible so many years later, right? And the fact that the 3 witnesses that came forward that saying that they saw the boys with Terry were not interviewed by the police at the time is complete bullshit. They basically interviewed people on one side of the street, but did not interview those on the other side of the street. What? Wouldn't you interview everybody in that area?
You would think so.
Right?
They screwed up so bad, though, in that case.
Yeah, we could honestly do a whole episode of all the mistakes. And I actually did start writing one. I'm like, well, we've already got a lot. We've talked about all the mistakes a lot, so we're just going to let that one go. But there's so much, so many mistakes, so many. If you had only the amount of times we could say that throughout this entire case is just astronomical. But yeah, so that's it. One more episode. I know y'all are going to be super, super sad after this case is over. I know some people, maybe Sophia, is going to be super happy that this case is over.
Yeah, I think it's time to move on.
It is. There was just some of it. There was no way to make it much smaller without doing it justice, was kind of the thing. I wanted to do the best job we could for Stevie, Christopher, and Michael. They deserved.
Absolutely. No,
right?
I completely agree.
Yeah.
I completely agree with that, for sure.
Yeah. And I've listened to a lot of podcasts that have covered this, some that have done it in one episode. There's no way. There's no way. Like, I remember at the very beginning, I'm like, guys, this might be our first 3-parter. And then I'm like, oh, I think it might be 8. And look at us now. We're technically at 19, but we're going to say it's 18. We just did 17 part 1 and 2. But that's okay. So that's it for Moms on Mics this week.
Don't forget to follow us on Instagram at Moms on Mics Podcast, on TikTok at Moms on Mics, and join our Facebook group, Moms on Mics.
If anyone has any topics you would like us to cover, or if you have any questions or suggestions, you can email us at momsonmics@gmail.com or submit through our website, momsonmics.com.
We would also appreciate it if you could rate and review us on whatever platform you're listening on. It really helps the podcast move up on their charts so it gets more exposure. I hope you join us again next week. Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.